This is the Our Town with Troy by North Alabama's podcast. And let's see, today is May 1st.
It is.
May Day. Isn't that what they call it? Kimberly Du Vall is here from the North Alabama Foster Closet. Correct?
Correct.
I can't remember actually even how we connected.
Amber Capella.
That's right. Amber did.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's at UAH,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to forgive me because sometimes I meet so many people, and I'm really good with names and faces. I'm not going to, like, now that I've met you, I'm not going to forget you. But sometimes I get lost in the details of, did somebody reach out to me? Did I reach out to them? You know, that type of thing.
Yep. She's one of our volunteers.
Oh, that's what, okay. That makes sense. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I want to,
Yep.
So I have a trivia question for you right away.
Oh.
You were born in Huntsville.
Correct.
Your dad was working on the arsenal at the time.
Yes.
Do you know, I learned this in the last episode. Do you know that what the original name was of the Redstone Arsenal?
I do not.
It actually, there were two entities. There was the Huntsville Arsenal and the Redstone Ordnance Plant.
Oh.
And those were created in 1941. And then in 1949, they, with the space race and bringing von Braun here and all that, I guess they merged those two, and they called it Redstone Arsenal.
Wow.
That's going to be my go-to trivia now, and I invite you to use that as well. If you're ever like game night or something, and you want to people think they know all about the history of the area, throw that one their way.
Okay.
So I have a question right away for you. So it is North Alabama Foster Closet. However, the parent 501c3 is Fostering Connections.
Correct.
Can you first talk about that history? So before we get into North Alabama Closet, obviously Fostering Connections came first.
No.
It didn't come first?
It's going to be hard to talk about Fostering Connections without talking about the closet.
Okay. If you can then just help, because when you go to the fostering-connections.org, you hear
Our new website.
Your new website, which looks good. Here it is, by the way. We can pull it up. Yeah. So if you can just kind of first help me understand the two entities.
Sure. So the North Alabama Foster Closet was serving families and helping with tangible items for a couple of years before we became a 501c3. It wasn't even known as the North Alabama Foster Closet. People called it the Clothing Closet or the Foster Closet. And so when we decided to become a 501c3, I truly believed, as well as the individuals who were helping to form the board, that there was more we could do than just the closet. So having a name that was going to encompass various programs, including the closet.
Okay.
So there were hours and hours of conversation around all potential names, and we came up with Fostering Connections. So the North Alabama Foster Closet is a program of Fostering Connections.
Okay. So then the idea is you'll add in, I guess the closet is kind of a brand off of that, and or service, if you will. And then the idea is you'll come across new things that will come under that umbrella of Fostering Connections.
Yep. So we have something called Fostering Identity, and we have Fostering Community. And so those are other programs that we run. It's just that the North Alabama Foster Closet is what keeps us extremely busy. And it's where we interface with the majority of families multiple times a week. And it's what the community really knows us primarily as, because that's what we were doing for years before we became Fostering Connections. So that's been a challenge, getting our actual name out there. Okay,
so then when did you started it? You founded
I was
the closet.
one of the original people it just literally evolved.
Got it.
It was just a grassroots effort. There were multiple different things that coincided and led to putting all this stuff in the back of a church building, and then started helping families.
Just kind of people that have similar situations getting together. Hey, what can we do? That type of thing.
So when we moved here 9 years ago, I was looking to connect with other homeschooling families, other foster adopt families, And it was pretty easy to connect in the homeschool community here, but I really struggled to connect in the foster adopt or the adoptive community.
Got it.
And so my sister had started a ministry at her church in Texas. And I reached out to her and I said, we've been here for months and I cannot find any foster parents, adoptive parents. What should I do? And she said, start a Facebook page. So I started a Facebook page. And
it worked.
A couple of months. So that's a private page. It's not something that the general public can see. It's called Huntsville Area Foster and Adoptive Families. And a couple months later, I met someone who was a Madison County foster parent and had some good connections. So within 6 months of our moving here, she and I, with another couple, started a gathering that was twice a month for caregivers. We called it a support group, and we were using trauma-informed parenting resources. And so it was from that group starting sharing resources, like actual like physical items. And so when things needed to be stored somewhere, they just went into our attic.
Got it.
So there was just bins upon bins. It was a slowly growing. And then the other couple, they had a lot of stuff in their garage. And so she was pregnant with a baby and she really wanted to pull the car in the garage. And so coincided with a time when my husband said, you really need to get these 30 some bins out of our attic. I can't get all the Christmas stuff.
Yeah.
She was also going to be delivering a baby in a couple of months. And so we moved into a back of the church where we were meeting for our Monday night group. They actually had a lot of unused space. And so they let us set up there. And so initially we were just meeting families as needed, myself, and then Celeste, or David and Jessica. So we were the 4 kind of original founders. People just had our cell phone numbers. And if they got a placement and they needed something, one of the 4 of us would meet them over, we call it the warehouse now, but we would just meet them over there. And then we started having open hours on Saturdays. And then that's when the community started donating a lot of stuff to us because we actually had a location and a time where people could drop things off. And so those Amazon and diaper boxes that we were taping together became actual bins that churches and homeschool groups started donating, like Rubbermaid bins that we could start stacking on top of each other.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it just kind of very slowly evolved over a period of a couple of years.
When you started that Facebook page, how quickly... was it a very fast thing where people just started to find you and connect?
Not originally, but after probably 2 years, I mean, it was years ago. It was 9 years ago. But after a couple of years, it really started to take off. So currently there's over 1,000 foster, adoptive, or kinship families that are officially members of that page. I know there's not that many people who are really following it, but we weekly get multiple new people who are looking for information about becoming a foster parent, or people who've moved here from out of the area like we did who are looking to connect with other families, or recently licensed foster parents or new kinship care providers.
Did any of the folks ever share with you why some of these services didn't exist before? Was it just the lack of people like you that had a vision and like we need to do something, or had certain things, tried to materialize and then they just languished?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just saw a need.
I just saw, and like our family, I really wanted our kids to have other friends.
Yeah.
So in Colorado, a lot of their friends were either current foster kids or kids who've been adopted out of foster care or adopted internationally. So it's just really important to me that they be in community with others who had had a similar life journey with more than one set of parents. And so, I was a very selfish reason that I was trying to find a community for our family to fit into. And
thank goodness for Facebook, right?
It just kind of evolved. Yeah.
I remember my sister had twins, and there's just things like the twins group, or if you have triplets or something, like there just seems to be a group for just about anything.
Yeah.
If you can find it, and I guess whether or not it's in your community. And then it's amazing, like the support that can be received.
Yeah. What is available now that was not available 9 years ago is pretty tremendous. There's a lot of resources that are now available specifically in Madison County that did not exist 9 years ago, which is really exciting.
Is that just
more support for families?
Do you just attribute that to the overall growth? More and more people moving here, kind of like you, and a similar situation. Mm-hmm. I've talked about this a lot in other episodes where, and forgive me whoever's listening if I repeat it, but I think it's applicable. Where, like in the zoo, I had a long time ago, episode 27. I had this guy on, Ethan Woodruff, and they're trying to bring a zoo to North Alabama, right? And the zoo is just another one of those examples of, okay, the Huntsville-Madison area is only so big. Mm. We're a secondary market. I think we're the 110th largest city in the country. So maybe since then we're 108th, 107th. But there's only so you can expect certain things to be in, the biggest metropolitan cities. Mm-hmm. But then ultimately you get down to like, well, can the population support whatever it is you want? Mm. But I think the benefit of here is more and more people may be coming to Huntsville, Madison, greater North Alabama, and they're bringing what they had in Colorado or California or Florida, wherever it may be, and maybe you're just seeing more people championing those things because they don't exist here, but that's the way they had life before. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And maybe a larger market. Mm-hmm. So you're benefiting from that. And do you see that in the volunteers that work for you, or that have, I don't know, had just positive experiences in supporting you all? Do they share those kinds of stories with you?
Yep. We have volunteers who are also moving here from other communities where they had volunteered with other organizations. Some of them have actually volunteered with organizations similar to ours in other parts of the country. And so when they find out about us, they want to get involved because they understand what we're doing and they understand the importance and they see the significance of it.
Yeah. Let's go through those programs, if you don't mind. If we could first talk about fostering identity. Mm-hmm. Can you go into depth more than what's listed here on the website? Just to,
sure.
This is your chance, right, to educate.
Yeah. So one of the very first things that I realized that many families needed support was understanding how to care for the hair and skin needs of children who were a different race.
Okay.
Today we had a Black foster mom who actually has 2 white foster kids. So she literally asked me today, how often do they need to wash their hair? And so I was just explaining to her about what it was like for me growing up and how often I washed my hair and then now. And she was really surprised, and it was a good time to just communicate about that because a lot of people think that it's white foster parents who are needing to learn about how to care for biracial or Black or Hispanic children's textured hair, but it's not always that way. And so fostering identity started out with a desire to just help everybody understand how to care for the physical needs of a child who is a different race and just has different texture and skin needs. And so before the pandemic, we did hair cutting events. And so that was really fantastic because with the hair cutting, there was also opportunity for education and for training and sharing resources, different products that were made available. People would bring the products. The hair professionals would bring products for the families to be able to take home and to use and to try. So things changed with the pandemic, and we were no longer able to continue to gather for those quarterly hair events. And so some of the conversations we were having early in the pandemic just revolved around what can we still do. And so fostering identity it's a program that has shifted as far as the focus, but the idea is still that kids are unique and their uniqueness needs to be celebrated. They need to know that they are beautiful and wonderful and they should be proud of who they are. And so we just had one event in the beginning of 2024 where we brought some tween girls together with some professionals. So we had a mental health therapist. We had she's actually a foster mom who also teaches exercise classes. And then we had someone come and talk about skincare. And so they did a craft together. We had a hair professional there. And so it was just a really sweet time to gather the girls and encourage them to build community and to be proud of who they are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. Said by creating a nurturing environment and celebrating the unique qualities of each child so that they don't feel, even if it's different and how they approach their hygiene, they don't need to feel ostracized in any way, right? Or different. It's just, and it's, I guess, buying into that. Well, there's a lot of different races on this planet, right? And a lot of skin textures and different hair. And you don't have to feel bad if it's different than the family you're with, that type of thing.
And a lot of education for the caregivers, because you just don't know if you don't know.
Sure.
And so especially the young children, they need someone to be able to take care of their physical needs, all their physical needs, not just to make sure that they're bathed and they're getting good nutrition. And skin and hair care is really important.
Sure. Let's go to the next one, which is fostering dignity. Right?
Yep. So that's the program that the North Alabama Foster Closet falls into.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's those are supplies. So what's cool is donations. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but you have people can donate their money, they can donate supplies, or they can donate their time. Right? So that falls into you're basically managing the supplies for on the closet side.
Yep. People bring donations to us. Our volunteers will sort through everything and get it all organized, get it cleaned if necessary, pass on things that we can't use, and then it's made available to foster and kinship families for the children in their home.
Have you had to create ground rules at all for things that you won't accept?
Oh, yes.
Can you talk me through some of those?
Sure.
I think that was probably a lesson learned, right? At the beginning, you're like, hey, we'll take anything.
Yeah.
And then things start to show up. You're like,
We literally had someone trying to donate a kitchen sink.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. And that was back many, many years ago when we first got started. But we just tell families what we need is what families need for children. So for babies, toddlers, kids, and teenagers, whatever you need for a child. So clothes, shoes, backpacks, school supplies, toiletries, toys, books, linens, just all the stuff that you need for kids.
Okay.
We do need adult size clothes and shoes, but they need to be teen appropriate. They need to be things that teenagers are going to want to wear. And so fostering dignity, the reason we chose the word dignity for the program is because we really want to be able to give the kids new and new items.
Right.
So the quality still needs to be exceptional. Kids need to feel really good in what they're wearing or what they're carrying to school or the sheets that they're sleeping on at nighttime. They need to feel comfortable and proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there, I guess there's times throughout the year where do you have to say no more backpacks? Like, we're good. Does that happen? Or do you just keep taking it all in?
So there was a period of time when we would have to post on Facebook. We are only accepting donations of certain items.
Right.
And so we just couldn't keep taking massive amounts of items. We haven't had that in a while. There definitely are times when we're overrun with donations, but we've figured out some storage solutions that I think are really helping with those times, because we will need those backpacks, right? Comes back to school, we're going to need hundreds of backpacks for the kids. And so I would hate to say no thank you to any more backpacks on May 1st, knowing that come July 1st, we're going to be needing a lot of backpacks.
Yeah. So what's that storage solution? Can you comment on that?
Yeah. So we have 2 Connex trailers on the side of our building.
Oh, wow.
And so those have been fantastic. We have these great shelving units that allow us to go vertical. We go vertical everywhere because we can get so much more storage. But we have these 2 Connex trailers, and then we have a wonderful church partner. It's a church in Providence that gives us free space for storage.
Nice.
It's probably around 2,000 square feet. And so we have all of our off-season clothing and just a variety of other things like Christmas clothes, Halloween costumes, Easter baskets, just some holiday stuff. And then at times we've also stored larger items that we've wanted because we know that we're going to need it for a family.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's do this. I want to come back to that, but let's finish the program and talk about community, fostering community.
Yeah.
And then I think we'll obviously come back. But talk to me about this one.
Yep. So this is just super important because foster parents need to know and be reminded that they are not alone. They need to have safe people that they can talk to who understand the unique journey that they're on. And that's true for kinship care as well. Kinship care is generally relatives, so they're kin who are taking care of a child.
Mm-hmm.
So grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, uncles, can be an older sibling, someone who is related to a child or children, so that they don't go into traditional foster care.
Right.
So they also need, kinship care providers also need a community because they have a journey that's similar to foster care, but actually has its own unique challenges.
Yeah.
And so fostering community is really, when you think back to when I moved here within 6 months, starting this support group that met on Monday nights, like really that was community, right? That is what I was looking for. It's what I wanted for my kids. And it's what families in Madison County were wanting because it quickly grew to 30 adults and 50 children.
Wow.
Coming together twice a month for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so it was just very clear that there was a real need for community. So that's how it started. We have been able to do events for families. So in the fall, we will go somewhere like Lion Family Farms or Tate Farms, and we will open up to literally hundreds of people will come at no cost. We have found sponsors to be able to cover the cost for families to be able to do that. So it's a really sweet time for the families to come together and to be with other families like them, but it also gives children an opportunity to build memories with their caregivers, whether it's their foster parents or their adoptive parents.
So this is like games and activities and stuff?
So Lion Family Farms and Tate Family Farms are like fall festival sort of places where there's pumpkin patches and hay rides and petting zoos and just really fun. They're just two.
So really, it's also designed to help you meet other families, make connections and friends.
Yep. And most recently, I've been doing 2 groups. So there's a group of moms who meet on Friday night twice a month, and then there's a group of moms that meet on Tuesday morning once a week. And so those are just also additional times for community building.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's some training involved there, or going through a book and discussing a book, or sometimes it's just for fellowship, just to come together and hang out and share stories and encourage one another, to laugh, to cry.
Yeah.
And then the other part of this is a training that we actually just completed. So the 4 Wednesdays in April this year, for the 3rd year, we hosted families to come for CEU training. So there were some caregivers as well who are adoptive parents who don't need the training hours anymore, but they really just wanted to come and be a part of this training that it's called Hope for the Journey. And so it's just a really wonderful time to hear from professionals. It's simulcast. So it's just a great time to hear from professionals about topics that are applicable to foster, adoptive, and kinship families. But one of the unique things that we do with the training is we'll watch an hour and a half training online, like the simulcast, but then we'll break up into small groups and have discussion around the table. And so that's 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the night, that the caregivers will sit in small groups and actually discuss the content from the training. And so that provides really good opportunity to kind of process what they just heard, instead of sitting and listening for 2 hours and then driving home and putting your kids to bed. And it just gives a great opportunity to really kind of think about and process what you're hearing and how that applies to you and how you might want to apply it to the kids in your home or to yourself.
Are most people that come eager to contribute and participate, or do you have some that it takes a while and then they kind of warm up to the idea, or for whatever reason?
The last 2 years that we've done this particular training, the people who sign up know that there is going to be discussion time. And so, I mean, we advertise it very clearly that it's an opportunity to come and process and listen and talk about what you're hearing. So there may be some people who choose not to sign up for doing this training with us because they want to just go and listen and they're not interested in the discussion time. But like the feedback, we did a survey we had 21 families who came, and we did a survey, and some of the feedback was that they love that format. They really like the opportunity to discuss it after they hear whatever topic that they're having for the training.
I don't know if you've ever taken like, I don't know if it was part of like leadership development or just some management courses, but like you bring people together and it's like the storming, norming, performing. So it's like, let's say you're at a class for 5 days, you know, and you don't know anybody because you're all coming from, I signed up for a management class in California. So, you got students from all over the country. Nobody knows anybody. And so at first you're kind of shy, by like day one, you might start to show your personality. And then day two, you start to get, you figure out who's the funny guy and who's the quiet, whatever. But then by the end of the week, you've really come together because maybe you've had some exercises, on purpose to get to know one another. And then by the end of it, everyone's just kind of themselves and you're like, give me your email and let's stay in touch. And you think back to like how it was Monday and just vastly different.
Yeah.
How people come together like through a common cause. And that's always kind of fun to see too.
Yeah.
Or that person who's like, I'm not going to participate. And then they end up being a wonderful like participant, right?
One of the really neat things about this year was the people doing the discussions. We did have a social worker who was leading one of the table discussions, but the other people leading or facilitating the discussions were all families from the Monday night group that met back 6, 7, and 8 years ago. Yeah, that group went on for 2.5 years. Wow. And so I had invited some of those individuals who I still have an ongoing relationship with, and I know that they really know and understand and do as much trauma-informed parenting as they can in their home. And so it was really, really neat to sit back and watch those individuals leading discussion with other parents who were, some of them hearing it for the first time.
Yeah. Let's dive into that. Do you mind?
Sure.
Talk to me about that. How did you come across this program, this methodology, if you will, and let's get into that.
Sure. So when we became foster parents in Colorado, we did our training and our licensing through an organization called Project 127.
Okay.
And all of our training 15 years ago was using material from a woman by the name of Karen Purvis.
Okay.
She was amazing. She and a man named David Cross had created TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention. So it was a parenting model. And so that was all of our training. So here in Alabama, it's called TIPS training, but our training to become licensed foster parents in Colorado used TBRI.
Okay.
So we don't have biological children. So other than having been parented, my only parenting experience from the get-go was using TBRI.
Okay.
So we lived in Colorado for 4 years, and our therapist encouraged us in that trauma model of parenting. Our Project 127 social workers that stayed involved with us did. And so there was a book available. There were DVDs. I actually saw Karen Purvis. She did a yearly conference. So the Hope for the Journey conference that's happening right now in the spring every year, it used to be called Empowered to Connect.
Okay.
So she's passed away, but prior, when she was alive, it was called Empowered to Connect. So I even saw her in person. So that was the training model. It's all I ever knew. So when we moved here 9 years ago, nobody knew about Karen Purvis. Nobody knew about TBRI. People looked at me, foster parents, adoptive parents. They had no idea what I was talking about. It's like, oh, this is really important. This is really good information, because kids with trauma histories, traditional parenting doesn't work with kids with trauma histories. And so there are really effective ways to parent kids, because amazing amounts of healing are possible for kids with trauma histories.
So can you walk through some of the highlights of TBRI as you remember it?
Mm-hmm.
So before tips, right? Like just what was it about Karen's approach?
Connection. It's all about connection.
Just connecting with the kid.
Yep. And so like so many parents, they see a behavior, they experience a behavior, and they want to fix the behavior. But trying to correct a child when you don't have connection with a child, it's futile. They might behave, but it's fear-based. It's not really changing the behavior. It's not getting to the core issue. And so kids with trauma histories, it's really, really important. And that takes time to develop a relationship and to connect with a child.
So the connection is really just building trust.
Mm-hmm. Trust-based relational intervention. Yep, that's what TBRI stands for.
Okay. Trust-based
relational intervention.
From your own history or others that you know, I mean, or walk through some of those. What's the typical parenting that doesn't work, or the typical parent that's trying to build trust?
Yeah.
When you're now dealing with a child that's had trauma.
Yep. So a really good example is when a child has been naughty and you send them to their room, a timeout. Well, TBRI talks about a time in. So a child with a trauma history who's already been neglected, has been made to feel shameful, has fear because of what has happened prior to coming to a foster home. They don't need to be sent away. That's not going to help them at all. They actually need to be brought closer. So if a child is being naughty and you need to do something about that, bringing them closer, like you're washing the dishes. So then the child, let's say you've got a 4-year-old, sits down and plays with blocks or reads a story or looks at pictures. Because you can keep washing the dishes, but you want to have the child with you, not to send the child away.
So you point out they've done something bad, but then you ask them to do something near you, an activity or something.
So it's just
the time in.
It's a concept of time ins are connect, like that's an opportunity to connect with a child. If you send them away for a timeout, that's.
But do you say time in to them and they know what that means? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So another something is called a redo. So a child is mouthy with you. They say something inappropriate or they're just mouthy, and you give a child a chance for a redo. And so you can just say to a child, would you like to try that again? Would you like to say that again? So actually, when my kids were tweens, they would sometimes say, Mom, do you need a redo?
It's like a mulligan.
I'm like,
in golf.
Actually, yes, I do. Sorry about that. And then speaking to, we all do. We all say things short with one another when it's not the best attitude. And so sometimes we all need a redo. And so that's just a concept that it's one of the wonderful concepts that Karen Purvis, it's a part of the TBRI program.
Yeah. Have you been, you said you have well over 1,000 members now?
So in the private Facebook page, the
That's
Huntsville area foster and adoptive Facebook page, there are over 1,000 people who at some point have joined that page and poked around and participated, asked questions, shared resources with one another.
Give me an idea. What's like the last time? Give me something you've learned recently through someone else. Maybe you think I'm not going to assume you think you know it all.
Absolutely
But you've been in this long. But give me an idea of something you've learned just recently. Had like a revelation. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So there was an incident just last week when I spoke to one of my kids, and I had to call them back and apologize because I realized what I said was a shaming. I was looking for a change in behavior, and I made a comment that was something that was to invoke, like a comment that would invoke, or my idea was that it would invoke fear, and that it would potentially change behavior, and that's it was. So last Wednesday, 1 week ago tonight, was the last night of the training, and there was something that was said in the video that made me realize
Hmm.
I really need to call my child back and apologize for what I had said. I needed a redo.
Yeah.
Because, shame-based parenting is not connecting, and connecting is the way to go.
You know, I had a moment with my son the other day, and I kind of think I did that where, I don't know, I was frustrated at him or something, and I don't know, we might have been yelling at each other, and he went to his room, and then I went up there and knocked on his door, and I said, listen, he knows how I grew up. I was physically beaten, by my stepdad, and they know that, and like it took a while. Not that I never beat my kids, but it took a while to like learn to let go of aggression, because I just wanted to like handle it the way that it was handled to me. But I said I get frustrated just because I didn't ever have the father-son experience, and here I am in the home with you, and it's just frustrating that there's contention. Like I just want to like have a relationship. I want us to communicate. I want us to get along. I want us to respect each other. And it's changed. Like that was like 3 weeks ago. It's changed our relationship big time.
So TBRI is not just for little kids.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the materials is geared towards parents parenting little children, but there is a TBRI for teens training that is available. And a lot of it is you just have to think about things, like just read the material and then kind of transfer it over. But it works with all relationships.
Yeah. What how do I want to phrase this? What other elements? Like, let's dive even a little bit deeper into the trauma, and I will keep
trauma-informed parenting
wanting to say
trauma-responsive parenting.
Yeah. I mean, I know are there some traumas that are just overlooked? There's some that just seem very overt, right? They're very natural. There's abuse, there's this and that, but is there a subtlety at times to trauma where you, until you were educated on it or informed, like that's trauma?
Yep. So people think of neglect as not being as bad as various forms of abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. But neglect is actually more harmful because it says to a child, you don't exist. We all exist. We all matter. And so it's actually more. So and a lot of parents don't realize that it's actually it's a more traumatic thing for a child to have experienced neglect than to have experienced sexual, emotional, or physical abuse.
Yeah, because sometimes those end up having that weird effect where they have that attachment. Like you say, why didn't you just leave? Like to a battered spouse, but then somehow they still love that person. Is that because they're in some way getting that like attention? If it's negative, right? But I guess I can see your point. With neglect, then it's just there's nothing there. There's no reason to have a relationship.
It says to a child that you don't matter, you don't exist.
Yeah.
And that is heartbreaking for a child to hear that or to experience that or to feel that over and over and over again.
Are there others that are subtle like that or overlooked that you can think of other than neglect? Or
it's not coming to me at the moment.
Feedback you've gotten from others just on I don't know if it's what's most common. Is there a most common type of trauma for those who come into foster care?
So I can answer this.
Okay.
A lot of the babies that foster parents come in needing supplies for, babies and toddlers, are kids who've been drug exposed.
Okay.
So they're looking for items that are specific to helping a child, like a newborn who is trying to work through, their body is having to deal with going through withdrawals.
Wow.
So they're needing special bottles, they're needing special swings, they're needing support to be able to help that child's body
Wow.
deal with that, because they can have digestive issues and trouble sleeping. And then in the toddler years, sometimes some very hard behaviors start to surface because of drug exposure.
Wow. Now, you were saying the brain, through therapy, through love, right? Through all the positives,
Mm-hmm.
they can heal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Children can heal
Mm-hmm.
from these things. Takes a while, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it, like in others, in that healing? And well, let's I guess address that. I guess you've seen it.
Yep, I've experienced it.
Okay.
Because our son came to us at 9.5 years old. We adopted him at 10, and it was 4 very, very hard years.
Okay.
And I have permission to talk about his life.
Sure.
It was really hard. It was hard on him. It was hard on us. It was hard on everybody. And then we had 2. So when we were in Colorado, he was on medication. He was seeing a psychiatrist, and he was in therapy twice a week. So it was an amazing mental health program that was available to us as adoptive parents.
Mm-hmm.
So Ben was in the therapist office for an hour and a half once a week. But then she also came to our home once a week and did family therapy. So we would all sit on the floor with her, and the kids would play, and we would talk and work through stuff. So he was receiving 3 hours of therapy every single week.
Wow.
Except for a week at Christmas and a week in the summer. And that was for 4 solid years. So that was amazing. And she was teaching us as parents things that we could be doing to help him, depending on whatever the issues were that were going on with him. So it was 4 years of not really seeing a lot of progression. Like there would be a step forward and then 2 steps back, and a step forward and 2 steps back. So it was hard. But then there was 3 years of seeing light at the end of the tunnel, and okay, maybe we're gonna be able to reach adulthood and figure out what's next in life.
Is he of a different race?
No, he's
Okay.
Caucasian. But as a 23-year-old, he's doing fantastic. Like,
That's great.
it's people, like, we go back to Colorado periodically to see my kids' younger sister who was adopted by a different family.
Mm-hmm.
And those who knew him during the early years, 10 to 14, are just amazed at how well he is doing now. And I mean, he can very openly talk about his experiences when he was not in our home, and then when he came to our home, and the parenting and how things were just so drastically different, and the reasons he did the things that he did, and how he's not even triggered by anything. He had PTSD, a host of other struggles, and he's not triggered at all anymore by anything. It's amazing. It's taken a lot of hard work on his part, on our part, the therapist's part, but he's really worked through. It's TBRI works. I know it because I experienced it as the mom.
So he was 9.5
when he came to us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if we could, if you're able to talk about it, like, I would imagine, depending how old you are as a child,
mm-hmm.
even at, the difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like, this can probably have very different outcomes into the levels of trauma, right? If they're in that situation. And I thought I was trying to do some research, and I was listening to a book on trauma, and we may think, oh, if the baby's or a child is 1, 2, or 3 years old, they won't remember anything. But that can start, I think, even as early as 1 year old, where the environment is oppressive or whatever, right? And it does have effect on that baby.
In utero.
Really?
So when people say, oh, well, this baby didn't have any trauma, we got him or her from the hospital, like, you're not counting the 9 months in utero.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever caused that child to come into another home, even at day 1 of after birth, there was stress hormones that would have been going through the mom's body even if she was planning on keeping the baby or not planning on keeping the baby or hiding a pregnancy. I mean, even if she had good nutrition and she was living in a safe environment and people who loved and cared for her, just even the stress hormones can impact a child's development. So yeah, it's unwise to say that there's no trauma even if you take a baby from the hospital at day one.
Yeah.
So from my experience and understanding, personality can really impact how a child experiences trauma. Age, whether it was a one-time trauma or consistent long-term trauma, the types of trauma, like there are just so many different factors. Every kid, you can even have twins who've experienced the same trauma, but their personalities are going to be different. And so how they process that and how their bodies deal with it and their brains deal with it at different stages is going to be different. Yeah. And that's one of the things that also, like back to your earlier question, I keep being reminded that trauma is developmental. So even though our son is doing really, really well, it doesn't mean at 25, let's say he becomes a dad himself. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he will be processing his childhood trauma again and new and different. And so he's put himself back into therapy for short periods of time, twice, even as a young adult, just because things have come up and he's realized, oh, I need to talk to somebody about this. So it's not like once you work through it, you're completely done.
Yeah.
Sometimes it will come back and need to be reprocessed.
Let's chat about, through your own experience, but when you see those signs. So obviously it's going to take time. It's likely going to be a lifetime for someone, right? And it kind of like you were just touching on it. At certain times, things are good, and then there's going to be some struggles, and it's good and struggles, right? And we all kind of go through that to some degree. But how did you learn, or the things that were taught to you on recognizing those signs? Because it's like everyone can have a good day and you have a bad day, but you want to stitch together as many good days as possible. You want progress, right?
Yeah.
So when you're looking at your own son's development or others that you've seen in the foster system, how do you know when they are showing you signs that there's been a digression?
So there was a lot of behaviors that were not ideal that were coming out of Ben during those first 4 years. Things that no parent wants their child to be exhibiting or experiencing. And so it was when some of those behaviors started changing and they were just healthy things that were happening, good decisions that were being made, an ability to talk about what was going on. So that was a very clear sign for us during the early years. And then during the 3 years where it was like, oh, things are getting better, and there was kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, again, it was a decrease in some of those behaviors that were very clear that he was not doing well, that he was afraid and was not feeling connected and was really concerned internally for his own well-being.
Okay. Does he have other than he has a sister you mentioned, but I guess I've heard different opinions on whether or not anyone. I shouldn't speak in like absolutes, but there seems to be a tendency if someone's been adopted or in their foster system to know about their birth parents, or and I've even heard some say that, oh, you should have a relationship with them. And I'm imagining that's a big portion of trauma. It's just that neglect, right? Why was I given up? But do you have any thoughts on should they seek out a relationship with their birth parents?
It depends on the situation. It depends on the child and their interest. It also depends on whether or not the birth parents are in a good place, if they are healthy adults and also will depend on the age of the child, I think personally, whether or not you want a 8-year-old interacting with someone versus an 18-year-old. who's a senior in high school, right? They can understand things on a very different level as far as whatever is going on with their birth parents. So, my kids, one of them was really interested in, well, initially they were both really interested in learning about the birth family when we became aware of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we flew out to Wyoming and met maternal grandma and 4 of the full sibling sisters that were raised by maternal grandma.
Mm.
And then one of the kids was like, okay, I've met some of my biological family. And then the other one was very interested in learning more and wanting to have relationship and continued contact. So it depends on the kids, and they were both old enough to make that decision in my mind. My younger sister has also adopted 3 kids. And so there's varying degrees of contact with different biological families members as well.
Okay.
So it really depends on multiple different factors. If kids want to know and they're a healthy adult at this stage in life,
Yeah.
and kids want to know who their biological family, grandparents, siblings are, I think it helps them figure out their story.
Yeah.
But if it's not a healthy adult or even an older sibling, if it's not a healthy older sibling, then the adoptive parents have to make a wise decision about what's best for their family based on whatever's going on with the parent or the older sibling, the grandparent.
Gotcha. Is there any other topic or subtopic of that you wanted to go into at all?
Of trauma specifically? Yeah.
That I'm not like smart enough to know what the question is.
People ask me why, like, other than my having my own need to have community with other foster and adoptive parents and for my kids to have community, why do I do what I do?
Yeah.
And because of our experience with Ben, because the direction he was headed when he came to our home was not a bright future. He was very unhappy, and he will say that he was unhappy. His behavior indicated he was unhappy. Things were not looking good for him as a 9.5-year-old. And so I have experienced from the mom's perspective of how amazing connected parenting or trauma-informed parenting, trauma-responsive parenting, the life change that it can bring to a child. And so I can't say enough wonderful things about it. Is a lot of hard work. It's very different than how most of us were parented. It's some of the people that I have relationship with who have parented biological kids and then learned this style of parenting have said this is really different, but we actually use it for all of our kids. We don't just use it for our foster kids or our adopted kids, because it's a model of parenting that is about relationship and people being in community with one another and being connected to one another. And so it's a beautiful, like, everybody wants to be a part of a family, whether it's your birth family, your adopted family, people that you've brought into your life because you have similarities or you have similar faith and you want to be together in community. Like, we all are looking for connection and a family to be a part of, however you define family. And so it is hard, but it is so worth it. I think that's the last thing that I just want to say is it's so worth the healing that is possible when kids are in a safe, healing environment where they're connected to their caregivers.
Have you thought about bringing this program to the just general parenting in the area? like you just said, right? This should be training that all parents can get. Like, I'm thinking about, oh, wow, time in. Why not? Why have we just been go to your room, take away your phone, and do all these things? Oh, we could benefit from that.
So the wonderful thing is there's a lot of resources available completely for free online.
Right.
So I do not have it in my capacity to do anything more than I am currently doing, but it is available for free for those who want to learn more. And the Connected Parent and the Connected Child, those are 2 books that are available.
Yeah.
For
This is cute. This is the Girl Scout troop. And I think I inferred from the caption that they used their cookie money to then buy supplies and donate.
Yep.
Right. How wonderful is that? Like on a few levels. One, for these young girls to, whatever their history is in providing service and making a difference, right? For some of them, it's probably their first time.
Yeah.
But how much did this warm your heart when this...
It's going to make me cry.
Is it?
Yeah, because I was a Girl Scout. Yeah. First,
I don't know if I have any Kleenex
Yeah,
here.
it's okay. I'm used to crying. I do it all the time.
Okay.
So my mom was, and my dad at times, but we're both, my younger sister and I were both Girl Scouts all the way through high school. And so we have, over the years, periodically had Girl Scout and Boy Scout troops who have done donation drives or done service projects for us. But this year, we actually had 3 different Girl Scout troops who use their cookie money to get items for us.
That's awesome.
And so this is just one of the 3 groups that did that, which is why I'm crying. It's so sweet. It's wonderful. We've never had 3 groups at one time.
Really?
Yep.
I just saw something on the news, and it was it's like these girls. I can't remember if it was local or national, but like these, I think they were twins, and they don't get birthday gifts, like whatever they have, like these wishes, and I don't know, I can't remember if it's like a fundraiser, but like they give gifts to whatever organization they come across.
Yep. So we actually had 2 young ladies do that for us about 2 years ago. Yep.
Huh. Maybe it was them. How old were they?
I think they were maybe 11 when 2 years ago when they did it for us. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. How long ago was this picture, by the way? It was
just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yep. It was the month of March when all 3 of the Girl Scout troops. No, maybe April.
That makes sense because I think the sales are in February.
Yeah.
Now tell me, I just want to go through a few pictures here.
Yep.
So tell me about this picture.
So this was actually on Saturday.
Was it?
Yep. So there was a church that was having a missions fair, and they invited a couple of different local nonprofits to come and to set up a table. And so people could sponsor an item. So I picked, I think it was 6 items that we currently need. And so individuals, we gave them a rough estimate, like a car seat's about $125. I think the shoes are about $15, so like summer sandals. And so individuals could choose to sponsor an item and then donate the money.
Then you would go buy the stuff.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I think we had 3 car seats donated, a couple of Bibles from this event.
Now, I'm going to ask you to go back and watch a few episodes of The Price is Right, because I think your sign there are spitting like replica of what they did on The Price is Right on some of their pricing games. So that funny. 125, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like, I'm seeing The Price is Right. Now, this is kind of cool. I think this is one of the Connex things, maybe not.
No.
But it's a swap.
Yep.
Right, where, summer stuff comes out, winter stuff goes in the bins, right? Can you walk me through this?
Yep. So this photo was taken so the church that is partner with us in Providence that stores our off-season clothing is Grace United Methodist. So this is in the approximately 2,000 square foot room.
I gotcha.
And so a group from the Brook, which is a church in Madison, have been the ones who've helped us swap bins twice a year for the last couple of years. So that is 2 of the individuals from that church who are literally, they set up what do you call it? The firemen who have the buckets of water. What is that called when you?
I don't know.
So they've always, when they've done the swap, they literally carry the bins up the stairs into the room.
Oh, they did
and so then this time they didn't. They literally stood in line and they were passing back.
Yeah.
I can't think what that's called, but that's what they were doing.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even have to take a step. You just hand it to the next person.
Yes, you just kind of pivot your
assembly
upper body.
line.
Yes.
But that's a huge service.
It is, because it's usually about 200 bins of clothing in each location. And so you've got trailers filled with bins at both spots. One time they literally crossed each other on Highway 53.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's you better have some good labels then, right?
Yes, everything has to be extremely labeled.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Size, gender, and season.
Now, I think this is a session of the connections or the community.
So this is actually from the second night of our training in April. So the Hope for the Journey conference that just happened on Wednesday nights in April, this is from one of those.
And it's a virtual thing?
The training is a simulcast.
Okay, that's
we
right.
watch sections of it, and then they were sitting around those tables having discussion afterwards.
Gotcha. You have any idea of the total attendance to something like this?
So we had 21 families who registered and participated. Some of them participated one of the 4 nights, but many of them participated all 4 weeks. Okay. And so most of them were husbands and wives. Some of them were just wives.
Got it.
But more than half were husbands and wives.
I think I knew this. I think I know this fella that's the bald guy up in the front. I don't know. Like, I'm going to have to ask him. I'm going to send this picture to him. Is that you? And then we saw this one on your website earlier.
Yeah. So that's from last year, actually. That's the same training, but that's
training.
last year. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I see this little figurine. I guess it was some sort of like workshop. You see that like little monster gorilla or something?
So we have to be really careful about taking photos of children who are currently in foster care. And so there was a child sitting at that table, and you just don't see the child, but the toy had been played with.
I see.
Yeah.
The great thing about Canva now, you can go and just like remove someone. Have you ever done that? Or, like the
I don't
magic
have
eraser?
those sorts of skills.
I actually like just a stupid example. I'll probably take this out of the edit. We don't drink alcohol, but so we were at a Conference USA basketball thing a couple months ago, and I saw a friend of mine, and he was like drinking a beer. So we're at some point like, hey, we should take a picture, and I didn't even notice till afterwards. He put like the beer like right in front of me. And, you know, takes a picture of my wife and I and him. And I'm like, ooh, like, I want to post this. Social media, right? You got to get credit for the things you do.
Yeah.
So I go into Canva and I just erase the beer and it's gone. And it's smart enough to kind of fill in the backspace. Like, you would never know.
Wow.
So I was like, I can't do that. I can't have people. I thought you didn't drink. Oh, yeah. I just fell off the wagon one night, you know. So always know you can go into Canva and you can do some things.
Yep. I just chose to crop the photos.
I like
that you didn't see them, but that's why there was a toy there.
Good call. Now I showed this one on purpose. I know this is 2022, but did you have similar numbers for 2023 that you could share? That
I don't remember the number off the top of my head,
but they were more than what's here.
I believe it was over 1,000.
Awesome.
In 2023.
Awesome. So it's growing.
Yep.
Little by little. So what's ahead this year? What is it you want to accomplish for the closet? You know, I guess when you get together with your board, and the size that you all are now, what is it you want to accomplish this year?
So we were able to, for years we've talked about having a website that represented us as an organization. And so that finally happened in the fall. And so we have been working with the same advertising company to do videos. So they've done interviews, they've come out to the closet and filmed, they've come to a ladies' meeting and filmed. And so I really would love for those videos to be completed so that we can have another way to be able to share with the larger community what we do and the impact that we're having in the community. So that's a project that's in the works.
So just more of the promotion, if you will.
Yeah. And so another thing that I really want to do is a women's retreat, to actually get away for a couple of nights with other moms. And it's one thing to come together for a couple of hours twice a month, but it's a very different thing to spend 2 or 3 days, morning to night, talking with and listening to and just sharing life together, the struggles and the joys, because it's a very unique and a very lonely journey for many people. And so I'm really hoping that at some point in 2024 we can have a women's retreat.
Where, do you have any specific venues in mind?
No.
Hotel? You're not camping, right?
I would love camping, but that's not the sort of atmosphere that
Yeah.
most of the moms probably want. So we haven't really figured out location. We've just been talking about some other preliminary things. We've had some funding donated, but we actually probably need more to be able to do a really special weekend.
I would imagine, for a couple that takes this on, they both have to be invested in this, right? And I'm it's almost dumb to say that should there be one not on at the same level of commitment as the other, there could be problems, right? But I'm also assuming that probably becomes problematic. I mean, you talked about 4 hard years, those first 4 hard years with Ben, right? And the toll that can take on your marriage, or if people aren't married, just their union together. I would imagine then you're also seeing therapists, right? Not just generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
It should be advised to do that.
Yep. Caregivers need a safe place to process what's going on at home, whether it's impacting the marriage relationship or the partnership, just the parenting aspect of it. But then if it is causing stress in other adult relationships, then yes, it's very important to have.
Is it almost advised to have almost like 2 different types of therapists, like one that is very specific to your role, the unique role of fostering, and then just another for just general?
I think it probably depends on the individual and what they're able to carve out financially and time-wise to be able to do. And some adults might see a professional during a particularly difficult season, and then things get better and they don't need to see anyone again, and then something comes up again. Or one of the things that happens, and I thought of this when you were speaking earlier, that if you have unresolved issues from your own childhood, for anybody, even for parents with biological kids, if you have unresolved issues from your own childhood, they can definitely come to the surface when you start parenting. And so when you bring in, if you've got adults who have unresolved things, and we all do have unresolved things, but really hard and difficult things, and you bring in kids with trauma histories, then that can just really exacerbate struggles for even the adults in the household if they don't have a safe person to talk to.
How are you all doing? Is it safe to say that you're doing very well on the supply side? That's kind of an easier thing for people to do
closet?
At the closet.
Yep.
What about just funding, money?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we recently were able to move into another 600 square feet, which doesn't probably sound like a lot to most people, but our previous location, so before the pandemic, for 3.5 years, we were in what we called the warehouse, and that was approximately 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
Now, it was very large. We did not pay for it. It was completely free because it was just in the back of a church that was using the building.
Right.
But we had no electricity and we had no bathrooms. So it was it was pretty rough, but we made do. It's all we ever knew. And so at the very beginning of the pandemic, literally March 31st, we had to be out of where we were. And so we moved into a much smaller space in Harvest, Alabama, 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
So that's when we got the Connex trailers. We started storing stuff at Grace United Methodist because we had so much stuff. So 5,000 to 1,200 is a huge difference. And so we have been very tight for 4 years, but just a little over a month ago, we were able to move into there was a hair place next to us that moved out. So now we have 1,800 square feet, which is really exciting. So to answer your question, monthly donors to help with our increased rent and utilities is a current need that we have, yes.
Gotcha. Are donors aware? Are they as aware as they should be in the gray area? There are some amazing nonprofits here.
Yeah,
right.
There's
but and I guess this kind of goes back to the social media, the promotion, getting the word out, right? I'm sure it's frustrating that more donors aren't aware. But, in your board meetings or other thoughts that you have to yourself as you're driving and, You know, is there something more you can do or that you're thinking about doing to attract those donors?
So there was a fundraiser in March to help with getting the word out just about us as an organization, but also to help with funding. And so $9,000 was raised at an event, which was fantastic for us. There has not been any further discussion about anything like that. We'd never done anything like that before. It was completely unique. We really have just relied on social media to put the need out there periodically. And it's a fine line. It's a balance between how often do you share the various, whatever need it is, how often do you share the needs before people start to get annoyed or turned off by the constant asks. So we try to balance it out with a lot of really wonderful things that are happening, quotes from caregivers about things that they're experiencing or things that they're receiving or how grateful they are, donors who are giving, volunteers at their experience. So
are there any state or federal grants that you could apply for?
So we have never applied for anything outside of grants we do apply for grants from local businesses who are providing grants to like Madison County, or sometimes it's Limestone, Jackson County. Some of them are not just for Madison County, but they're all just local.
I would imagine as easy as that sounds, it's probably not easy, right? To chase those things down.
Yeah.
And spend the time doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe you get picked and maybe you don't. So then ultimately, was it worth your time?
Yeah.
Right? I get that.
There's a lot of different things to juggle
Yeah.
in running a nonprofit, and I am the one staff person. And so every day it's like, what is the priority? And for me, the priority is the families. It's the kids. It's who needs what, who needs a phone call, who needs to be encouraged. There's a family with a child in the hospital right now. And so when I leave here tonight, it'll be a phone call to the mom to see how they're doing. Like that to me is the number one most important thing.
Yeah. I think you and I mentioned nonprofit, it's still a business. Like any business, whether it's for profit or not, it's the same principle. Like, so right now those are your customers, you know, so like sometimes in business you get too focused on your customers and you don't have the ability to get new customers, you know, and then, you know, you're just always trying to figure out where to apply your effort.
Yes.
You know, and your percentage of effort.
Yep.
And you know, money's a part of that, right? And just for the viability of it. So it's anybody who says you have business experience, even if it's a nonprofit, right? You're running a business.
I am, yes, with the help of others, running a business, and
that's a true
trying to figure it out as I go along. Labor
of love for some, but it is an important labor. Very important.
Yeah. I mean, I love what I do. Yeah. It's required that I learn new skills and bring in other people to help with things that I don't know how to do. So Amber, she started out as a volunteer who was helping out the closet. And then when she offered to help with an annual report one year, I was like, oh, you know how to do that?
By all means.
She was like, yeah, I'm like, have you done one before? She's like, no, but it's not so different than what I already do for work. And I'm like, what do you do for work? She's like, marketing.
There you go.
I'm like, oh, okay. That's really good to know. And so she's helped us with so many different things, especially this last year related to marketing.
Is there an aspect of this that you surprised yourself that you're good at, that you may not have thought you were going to be good at when it comes to running a nonprofit?
Nothing comes to mind.
Didn't underestimate yourself.
But one of the things that sometimes people say to me that they really have enjoyed our Facebook posts, because we're not, we're on Facebook. We just got on LinkedIn a year ago. We're not on Instagram, but people have said they really liked our Facebook posts. And I really like photography. I've been doing photography since I was a very young teenager. And so I think that has helped our Facebook post, because when you have a really good image, then that draws people in to actually see what the image is about. And so I think that's one of the things that I've been able to bring to the table as far as a unique skill that has helped us as an organization.
Yeah. You do well in your posting. Like, it's very regular.
Well, thank you.
And there's a lot. It's
So,
good.
I mean, that's been a huge, I've had to learn a lot about social media, and there's still so much that I do not know. I mean, it really could be just someone could spend 20 hours a week just doing social media for us. Yeah. And
at some point, you also have to realize, like, you can't post everywhere. Yeah. So you got to make a decision on where you're going to be. Yeah. Right. Did you do photography, like, where you had to develop your own film?
I did.
I in the Stop Beth and the Fixer.
Yes, I loved working in the darkroom in the 80s. I absolutely loved it. Black and white film photography was
Yashica?
My thing.
Did you use the Yashica cameras? Do you remember?
I had a Canon, and then I had a Nikon film camera.
I remember we looked down at it.
Oh, yep. So a medium format camera, like a 2.5 by 2.5.
I guess I could look it up real quick.
So I did medium and large format cameras only at one camp that I attended. So I went to high school. My dad was stationed at Fort Sill in Oklahoma, and I went to high school in Oklahoma, and I went to Oklahoma Summer Arts Institute the summer of 1988, and I was able to use a medium and large format cameras, but otherwise I only used 35 millimeters. That was my only opportunities.
What's the next step up? Like 60 millimeter film or something? Because we were using
I don't know.
the bigger film in these cameras. Yeah. And then it was all black and white, and then we'd go in the dark room and put it in the 4 different chemicals, and we could, for like 10 cents, you could buy the 8x10. And I think the 5x7s were like 6 cents or something like that. Maybe it was to
be able to print.
Yeah, to take it home. If you decided you want to take something home, we had to just buy the, maybe it was 50 cents for an 8x10 and 10 cents for 5x7. I don't remember.
Yeah, I absolutely loved working in the darkroom for many.
Were you on the
many
yearbook
years.
staff too?
I was.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's kind of how it worked. And then that way did you put all the pictures of yourself in the yearbook?
Oh, absolutely not.
No, you didn't?
No.
There was this girl, Jennifer. It's funny because, like, her boys are, like, really good wrestlers, and I ran into her, like, when, like, my kids are, like, at different wrestling events. You don't see someone, like, since high school, and 20-something years goes by, and you're like, whoa. And I just remember her, like, she kept trying to sneak pictures in of herself in the yearbook. And then the staff would have to come back through and, like, take them all out. Yeah. And I guess she must have snuck into the school or something on the night before it was supposed to go to the publisher and put them all back in. So it's just like, I'd have to show you my yearbook. It's just Jennifer, like, on every page.
Wow.
You can always tell who's on the yearbook stuff. Anything we haven't covered yet that you wanted to dive into?
We have an amazing group of volunteers.
Yeah.
And a board of directors that are fantastic. We depend on the community to donate items, to donate finances so that we can be in our space. Yeah. But we could not do it without our volunteers. I could not do it without our volunteers. They show up every time that we're open for open hours, but so many of them do things from home. So Amber helps with marketing stuff. We have someone by the name of Rebecca who, when we do have items, especially car seats that are donated that are not in perfect condition because we want them to be super clean for kids, she just takes them home and she cleans them. She checks the straps to make sure that everything is in excellent working order. So there's just so many different ways that people are involved and help us be able to help families. There's a lot of different moving parts for running things, specifically with the North Alabama Foster Closet.
So let's say if a church youth group wanted to come and provide service to you all, and there's like 20 to 30 of them, could you use that type of like labor for 2 or 3 hours?
So when we were in the warehouse, we would often have large groups come because with 5,000 square feet, we could do groups very easily. But with 1,200 and only recently moving into 1,800, it is much, much harder to have a large group. So that's one of the reasons that the Brook is doing the seasonal swap, because they've been one of our church partners from the very beginning, and they've just wanted to help in however the ways that they can. They were one that used to send large groups when we were in the warehouse. And when I said there, you guys, it was especially with the pandemic and everybody social distancing, I'm like, there's no way I can take maybe 2 or 3 people plus 1 or 2 of our volunteers. And they were like, is there anything that you need a lot of people to help with? And the very first time that we swapped bins, I was like, yeah, we definitely need a lot of people to make that happen. And it's good. It's wonderful to be able to work with them, because now they've done it so many times. Like, we've got a process and we get better at doing it every single time that we do it. So that's really helpful. But it's much harder to do a larger group. Every once in a while, we'll have 8 to 10. And even that can be kind of tricky.
Gotcha.
But like, one of the events that we have every year happens, there's a church of the Highlands will have a serve day in middle of July. And so we will do a big event for families with bouncy houses and water slides and horse rides and food. And so that's a place where we usually have 30 to 40 people. So that's not actually at the closet, but that's one of our fostering community events. And so that's a way that a larger group can volunteer is they can host an event for us. We're all about events. It's just a great opportunity for families to be able to get together and do something.
I can't remember if Alabama participates in this, but I think in September, I think we do, like the National Day of Service that started, I don't know if it started in the Mid-Atlantic with like Virginia, Maryland, and it's just kind of expanded. But I think there's that second Saturday in September where you're supposed to find, if you're a church or any sort of group, that's kind of like this national, everyone's doing something on that day. I could help arrange something, maybe. We're always looking for something for that day.
That would be fantastic.
But I guess it would come down to some event, like you were saying, outdoors or whatever else.
We've had youth groups do car washes.
Oh, okay.
So that's
fundraising.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, actually, so they've just done car washes for foster families.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see.
We just line the foster families up in their cars and then have a little area for the caregivers to hang out and playground for the kids. So we've had 2 different churches do that for us. One of them has done it 3 times.
Let me ask you this. I've certainly talked to a lot of homeless shelters or food banks where, there's perishable stuff, right? Publix or Harris Teeter, whoever has to, Kroger, shouldn't say Harris Teeter. I don't think they're here. I keep forgetting I'm not in Virginia. Kroger or whatever, pick your grocery store. I'm sure that there's some sort of donation of food, right, to various things. But when it comes to like the Walmarts and the Targets and like toys that don't get sold or things that don't get sold, I mean, is there something in place where they look to nonprofits in the area to just donate stuff that didn't sell?
So I don't know about Target, but twice during the pandemic, we were contacted by Walmart to receive pallets.
Wow.
And we said, no.
You don't have any place to put them.
We only have 1,200 square feet. And we didn't have the staff. Like, during the pandemic, we had amazing volunteers. We had a couple of volunteers who served a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And there was just no way that we could, even if we had the space, that we would have the manpower to sort through pallets.
Now, was that just because of the pandemic, or is this something they regularly do?
I don't know. I just know we were contacted twice.
Gotcha.
About a year apart. And both times I had to say, no, thank you. There is absolutely no way that we could do something like that.
It's a wonderful gesture. However.
And there are some much larger organizations, I'm sure, that would very much benefit from something like that, but not. We're a teeny tiny organization.
Yeah, well, I was just trying to get your, I don't know.
No, I mean, it's a wonderful thing because there are lots of places that do have excess items that they've got to do something with them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, I've always been fascinated by that. Like, I mean, I guess that's maybe why the TJ Maxxes and the Marshalls and the Rosses exist. Like, it doesn't sell somewhere, it comes to them, and then, well, if it doesn't sell there, then where does it go? Right? Like, I'm fascinated with that. And then does it end up in nonprofits? But how would they even know who to reach out to?
Right.
Or what kind of agreements they have? Oh, so Kim Savage, she's a friend of yours?
I met her because she came out to actually interview me during the pandemic. She wanted to do a little, I don't think it was called Facebook Live back then, but she wanted to.
Well, you ended up come back and you were in their studio at some point.
Yes, so she
right?
came out of the closet and we did a little interview in person, and then I did go to their studio as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tim Knox, who just passed away, was like, he founded Revolved Realty.
Yes.
And then she and he were doing that show together.
Yes. Yep.
And then in my research for you, I came across that clip that when she interviewed you in the studio.
Yes, that was for a tulip fundraiser.
Yeah.
A little over a year ago.
Did you know Tim at all? Tim Knox?
I did not. I had met him in passing.
Gosh, it's just he was a larger than life guy. I last saw him in like December. We went to lunch, and I didn't realize he was in I don't know. He was just in bad shape. Had a complication in surgery or something, and then died. And I was like, disbelief, you know. So yeah, as soon as I saw that set, I guess she interviewed you without him there, and someone else was joining you.
Yes, she, Stacy and her husband own Bookin Farms, and they were the ones doing the tulip fundraiser for us in 2023.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna do some fun questions.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
Favorite color?
Purple or orange. Depends on the day.
Purple or orange? Okay. What is it about the day that's purple?
I don't know. It just depends on my mood. Sometimes it's denim. It's not even a color. I love denim.
Would you rather go on a cruise or all-inclusive vacation?
Neither.
Neither?
Send me to the woods.
To the
woods.
Go
to the mountains.
The Rockies?
Oh, I love, any mountains, but yes, the Rockies are awesome.
Because you were in Colorado.
Yes.
Which part of Colorado were you in?
We lived in Castle Rock.
Oh, wow.
So it's between Denver and Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
My husband was working for a Christian ministry that serviced both ministries in Denver and Colorado Springs, and homes were less expensive back 18 years ago when we moved there.
Castle Rock used to host a PGA tournament, golf tournament there. It was a weird one. It was, what was it? Anyway, it was a different format, and I always remember that because it was just different from anything they did.
Was it Castle Rock or Castle Pines?
I think it was Castle Rock.
Okay.
But I'm also thinking of that movie Stand By Me, and I think it was Castle Rock, Oregon, where they go look for the dead body. Remember that movie in the 80s?
I do. I don't think I ever saw it, but I do remember it.
I think it was Castle Rock, Oregon. Sorry. My mind's going. Have you been to Alaska yet? Like to Mount Denali?
I have been to
Have you?
Alaska. It was the third to the last state before my 50th birthday.
That's right.
Yeah.
You did some driving, didn't you?
I did. So I went to Alaska in August, and then my mom and I drove to see North and South Dakota.
To finish it out.
Yep. In September.
Yeah, those are two states I haven't been to yet. I've been to just about all other states, but I don't have a reason really to go to North or South Dakota.
So I saw Denali driving, yes, and it was a beautiful day. People who lived there, and when they saw my photos, they said, "Oh my, you are so fortunate because it's not usually that clear." And so we were able to get fantastic photos of Denali.
Wow. Do you do horseback riding at all?
I have. Like when we would vacation when I was a kid, my mom loved horses and actually had horses when she was in high school. And so sometimes when we did a lot of camping as a family. So sometimes we would do horseback riding sort of adventures just for like a couple of hours as a family. Okay. But I'm not like a horse person.
Yeah, I'm not either. But
I mean, I like horses, but
I think when you go to a lot of those mountain excursions, that's like an option is to go ride up and down the hillsides there. All right, this is a question I asked Mayor Battle. Would you rather fly the plane, fix the plane, or guide the plane?
None of those. I'll sit on the plane. Can I sit on the plane and just go somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I know you spent a year in Australia.
I did.
That's a long plane ride.
Oh, yes.
Would you do it again?
I would to go back to Australia. I would love to go to New Zealand as well.
Do you still think about how hard that plane ride was?
I have thought about it, actually. Yeah.
So here, what?
Coming back from Australia in the 80s, so I would in 1989, it was a 32-hour trip.
Oh boy.
From Melbourne, Australia to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Yeah, you had to bring Melbourne to Sydney, Sydney to LA,
No,
to Dallas.
We was into Honolulu. I remember we stopped down in Honolulu.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it was crazy. 32 hours.
You like just dragging. Yeah, I went.
And the fact that I remember, more than 30 years later, how many hours it was.
So you were in Melbourne the whole time?
I was in Melbourne for all 12 months. Yes.
Did I pronounce it wrong? Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Mm-hmm. What is I've only been in Sydney and Canberra.
Oh, I love both those cities, especially
Yeah.
Canberra. Canberra's awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of a government town, right? In a way, like they told us, like, I don't expect to do much there because people kind of come in and then they leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I was only there for like a conference. I didn't get to like really get out and about. I did in Sydney. But what is something that you visited that was somewhat, I don't know, underrated or people don't talk about much that was like a gym for you in Australia?
Coober Pedy.
What's that? Coober Pedy.
Yeah, it's an opal mine. So
wow.
One of the really cool things that I had a chance to do when I was living in Australia was to go out to Ayers Rock. And so it was a school excursion. They just do a lot of really cool things in Australian public schools. And there was a 2-week trip by bus, 30 year 11s.
Oh.
Yeah. And so one of the places that we stopped was an opal mine. It was called Coober Pedy.
Year 11, like a junior.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They call it year 11.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to,
yeah. No,
I
it's
had to
okay.
think about that.
Yeah. So that was a really.
Did you get
wonderful
some
thing.
opal? Did you?
I did. I got an opal ring. But my favorite thing to do in Australia was Ayers Rock and climbing to the top of it.
How high up is that?
It's not particularly high, but it's a very steep, and it's a rock.
Yeah.
So they actually had chain link. So there were metal posts with a chain link, and so at some places you are literally hand over hand
pulling yourself up.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Yeah, that's have you been back there?
No,
just that one time.
I was just there for 12 months back in 89 and 90.
Okay. Now, I guess here they let kids go to space camp, I think, right, as part of their public school education. I think that's right. I think I heard that. I heard somebody mentioned the other day, and like, oh yeah, so-and-so's at space camp. I'm like, aren't they have school? Like, well, it's part of school. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, there are some school programs.
Okay. Let's see, aisle or window when you're on a plane?
A window.
Really?
Oh yeah. I gotta look outside. Gotta see things from above.
I have this problem where I need to go to the bathroom a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I have that problem as well, but it's worth it to me.
Yeah.
Because I love to look out the window in an airplane, especially in an area where I've never been before.
Yeah. Favorite zoo animal? Or maybe not even in a zoo. Yeah, let's do both. Zoo animal and wild animal.
I like to watch the monkeys at the zoo.
Okay.
They're very entertaining.
Yeah.
Like the smaller monkeys.
Especially when they engage with the public.
Yes, they're very entertaining. Favorite animal? Probably a dog.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a dog person.
Have you seen Chimp Empire?
No.
There's a documentary on, I think it's on Netflix. It's fascinating. Like in the Ngogo forest in Africa, they've been following these chimps since like the late 80s, early 90s. And so they know a lot about them, like their, kind of like their ancestry. And so there's this amazing documentary where they did like nonstop for 4 years, cameras.
Wow.
On these chimps. And it's amazing where it gets into like how like you look at their face and they look around and you can't you can't get any sense that they're communicating with one another. And there could be a scene where all of a sudden 5 of them get up and just start running to like go battle this other tribe of chimps. And they have like there's like these gangs. They've kind of figured out like there's ones who stay in the north and then the west, and they're very territorial, and they can kind of sense when some rival gang's trying to encroach upon their territory. But it is, and they have all the names, and you're going to kind of fall in love with the certain characters. But they followed them, and they had 400, like maybe it was 400 days. Maybe that's what it was. And then they stitched it all together in a documentary. But it's just fascinating. Like and I think there's like 4 or 5 episodes, and it's really good, just really good. Animals fascinate me. We have cats in this house. Hope you don't mind.
I don't mind cats.
So if you got a dog, do you have a dog now?
We do.
If you got what's the dog's name?
Her name is Annie.
Okay. If you were to get another dog, have you thought about that? Or
she is 95 pounds. Yeah, she's an Anatolian Shepherd.
Whoa.
She's huge.
Wow.
So we don't have room in our house for another dog.
Anatolian
but go ahead and ask your question.
Well, what would be if you were to get another dog? What would you name it?
Well, it would depend on the dog. So
okay.
I grew up with 3 black labs, and we had them each at different times, and this is how my family did it, was whatever the dog looked like or whatever their personality. So their names were Smokey, like smoke, Midnight, and Coal, like black coal.
Wow.
So as an adult, my husband and I, our first dog was a black lab chow. And so his name was Oso, which means bear in Spanish.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we had Buster and Blaze. And they were 2 Australian Shepherd Border Collies. And their personalities were just, we had Blaze, who was just all over the place all the time. And Buster, who was just like, hello, look at me. Like,
I'm here.
Yeah, so their names totally suit them. And it took us a long time, actually, to get Annie's name. But she's an Anatolian Shepherd.
There you go.
So we struggled. Her name, she came to us as Brooklyn. She was a rescue. And we called her Brooklyn. She came to Brooklyn, but we just didn't really think that name suited her. So
Annie.
My husband realized, he's like, what about Annie? And I'm like, it's perfect. Because we spent hours. We were online looking, asked the vet, one of our vet appointments, what do you think we should name her? Because Brooklyn is just not working for us. So I can't give you a dog's name. I would have to meet the dog before I could give you a name.
Fair enough. Is there anybody from any stage in life that you would want to apologize to? Could be a school teacher. Could be, I don't know.
Somebody I have apologized to, or somebody that I would want to apologize?
That you would want to. That you probably should have or didn't think about at the time. And, maybe you think about it from time to time in life. Like, I really wish I would have said I was sorry to this person.
Yes, there is a person.
Okay.
He has since passed away.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Well, Kimberly, it's been a pleasure having you.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts or shout outs?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This has been a lot of fun. You were right. There's no reason for me to get all stressed about this.
It's just conversation, right?
Yeah. You're really easy to talk to.
Stuff that you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I actually do feel guilty at times because you start realizing, like, I probably could have read 30 books just to like really dive into, I don't know. But
trauma.
But then the problem is we'd probably spend 40 hours talking.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, well, where do you start? Where do you focus? Right.
Well, and you talk to so many different people from so many different backgrounds and companies and organizations and life stages. And yeah. So you would not have any time to work. All you would be doing is preparing for your guests.
That's, I guess so. But, I try to use my time wisely in the car or if I'm exercising or something to just, I'm not always just listening to fun music or something. I'm like trying to dive into trauma and I guess there's just so many different sources of it now, right? I mean, there has to be some studies that are like there has to be more. It has to be more pervasive, I would think, than in any other time.
Yeah.
Because so many seem to be struggling, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
But my hat goes off to you, and what you do, and all the volunteers.
Thank you.
And I know that everyone kind of has their thing and they have their passion, but for you and what you're doing with the closet, and fostering connections, it's noble.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think the only last thing that kind of came to mind was if there is a caregiver out there, a foster parent, a kinship provider, an adoptive parent who is struggling, who feels alone, who needs ideas and resources, somebody to listen, feel free to reach out. I'm the person currently who answers all of the Facebook messages and the website inquiries. So if anybody wants to connect because they need any sort of help or support, I would love to connect with you.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, all the best.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I look forward to, I'm serious, looking at some volunteer opportunities for whether it's individuals or our youth.
Yeah.
Always looking to do stuff.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.